Today I'm going to talk to what appears to be some very interesting things popping off with regards to the Blowout Forums and allegations around threads being deleted about Ken Golden, sports card investor, out of self-interest or maybe requests from those individuals. They're basically shutting down, negative content, censoring people's voices. Now, this is a pretty alarming situation when you look at it from that perspective. We're going to talk through the facts. We're going to talk through what I think is going on. But more importantly, we're going to try and have, a deeper discussion around, the hobby and why things like this are not a good look, right? And I'm going to touch on that in a lot more detail. So it's basically, just stay tuned. Now, like I said, this sort of popped off in the last few days off the back of, Mind Cycle Cards. Now, if you're not sure who this guy is, he basically is the one who put that video together that Sports Card Radio referenced that talked through, all those purchases that Jeff Wilson had made over the last, 2 to 3 years. He basically outlined, how many cards he's bought. I think it was about $2.5 million USD spent, and what the prices of those would actually be worth today had he sold them, right? Because, Jeff's channel is obviously called the Sports Card Investor. He wants to try and put a test to how successful some of Jeff's, investments are in the sports card space, which is, a very, very fair thing to do. Now, this thing got a lot of traction off the back of Sports Card Radio. I believe Jeff also talked about it in his podcast and basically refuted the claims, talked to how, the losses aren't realized yet because he hasn't sold them, blah, 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 blah. He's in it for the basically long game. Now, it was a very interesting video. I don't think it was hateful at all. And off the back of it, a lot of people started talking about it, and rightfully so, on the Blowout Forums. Now, what was quite interesting in this over the last few days is that when it was posted on, the pages like this, which is Sports Card Investor from YouTube, the big thread that was started about Jeff back in 2020, I think it was, people noticed that some of these posts talking about this video started to get deleted. And what these people also noticed is that this has been happening for quite some time on Blowout. You go talk to anyone, people have had, accusations around these allegations for the last 6, 12, 18 months, right? And it's not just videos or comments, about Jeff's videos. There's also posts getting taken down about Ken Golden too. And these things are getting deleted, very, very quickly, according to a lot of trusted sources. And what was really interesting about this is because, on face value, it looks like censorship, right? Because people are talking, about very valid things. They're talking about the hobby. People love Jeff, people hate Jeff. So they're talking about all the elements and why, the things he's talking about, in his video is good, bad, or ugly, right? And, Jeff is a sports card investor. That's what he calls himself. So when things are happening that people think are questionable about whether or not you should be listening to him, that's perfectly valid, right? When you're putting yourself out in the public space to call yourself an investor, you deserve to have some pushback and challenge, which I don't think Jeff hides away from. But when people were talking about those things were getting deleted, right? So immediately people started thinking, well, okay, what's going on here? Is Jeff asking this to be taken down? The ones about Ken Golden, is he asking these to be taken down? Do they have a relationship with Blowout Forums? Are they sponsors of Blowout Forums? Because they are sponsors, of other forums. Are these guys, associated with the Blowout Cards business itself, right? All these questions are rightfully being asked because people can't really see the justification in why, these discussion points are being, censored. I'll say that word again because it's very clearly being censored. Now, Blowout themselves have come out today and talked to the fact that they deleted, those threads and those posts. I should also note that this thread has not been deleted. And I should also note that, Mind Cycle Cards has had his account suspended off the back of some of the things he was discussing about. They basically said they did so for self-promotion, right? Because he was basically going on there and talking about his own video. But again, like I just touched on, there's many other people talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of what Jeff is doing with his videos and the things they like and the things they don't like. The same thing with Ken Golden. They're not self-promoting their videos, but those posts are also being deleted. You can see a comment here from, Auburn35 where he talks about, appears this thread received a haircut, purge the SCI investment tracker video and discussion, as well as, comments about that specific thread as well. So it's not just the guy doing the self-promotion or the alleged self-promotion. There's all these other talking points that are being censored as well. A few people have come out and questioned this whole self-promotion perspective, right? Because Mind Cycle wasn't necessarily talking about people going to watch his video. But again, if Blowout Forums want to classify that as that, that's fine. But a few people like Wax Museum Podcast have come out and said, well, there's a lot of self-promotion that goes on this platform that is also not being targeted in the same way this was. So is that you guys just missing it because, Jeff Wilson and Ken Golden are big names, so when you see things happen to them, you want to act quickly to try and save face? Or is it not being targeted elsewhere because there is self-interest involved or there's some kind of relationship that's not disclosed, right? that's the kind of thing that people are sort of asking on this situation. And, you know, a few people have come out and said, like Brian Gray basically talking about the forum being toxic, and Blowout saying they want to try and look into it. A few people pushing back on the self-promotion claims, and Blowout basically doubling down, being somewhat passive-aggressive, saying, you know, follow the rules or you're going to get suspended or banned. And that goes to the talking points a lot of people have raised and questioned about Blowout over the last, 12 to 18 months, where a lot of this stuff, does appear to be happening. This kind of censorship, if it is, that, and it's not the things Blowout are saying, which, it doesn't look like it is, in my opinion, is not a good thing for the hobby, because you want to be having open dialogue on things, right? If it is just self-promotion, why did some of these other comments and posts and threads also get deleted? And why are posts questioning things like Ken Golden that don't have self-promotion in them also being deleted relatively quickly? Why is that stuff happening? Are you guys saving face, or are you doing something dirty in the back end? And I put a question to Jeff Wilson and his team. I'm not sure if I mentioned that already, about trying to understand whether they've told Blowout to delete this sort of stuff. I messaged the contact out there that I've had since my PPP videos, because I said a few things in that video that they wanted clarification, or me to reach out to them to clarify before, talking about it again. So I've checked in with them, every now and then, just to get, a fair side of the story. And I think that's a good thing to be doing anyway. I want to give you guys informative content. I've got no response from them as yet. It was Sunday their time, Monday here in Australia at the moment. So take with that, what you will. But I don't think they're ignoring me, because they definitely don't, because they respond to me all the time. So if they do respond by the time this video drops, I will put it down in the comments below. But this is the kind of thing that we don't want to be seeing, right? You need to be able to talk freely. You need to be able to question things. You need to be able to push back. You need to be able to hold, businesses, content creators, influencers accountable, right? You've got people out there that are putting out content around, investing in sports cards, right? His whole channel theme is sports card investing. So why is it so bad to be, pushing back on that and saying, okay, Jeff, I like you as an individual, but all these purchases you've made, they've not worked out too well. Why can't we push back on that? Why can't we ask questions? And when you're seeing, these things get taken down pretty quickly from Blowout Forums, it pushes that narrative of what appears to be censorship. You've got so many people, coming out and saying, yeah, the same thing happened to me, the same thing happened to me. Yes, it's been happening for 12 months. Yes, it's been happening for 2 years. When Blowout Forums first came into effect, I think it was like well over 2 decades ago, I want to say, maybe even more. Was always a really, really good source of information and knowledge, right? It's where the hobby came to learn about things. And yes, now we have YouTube channels and Instagram pages and all this sort of stuff sharing the same information that used to be on the Blowout Forums. But when you've got people that have, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 plus posts, right? They're committed to Blowout Forums, they check it every day, and they have for over a decade, saying they don't go there anymore because they've seen a lot of this sort of stuff happening. That's not a good thing. And I talk about Blowout Forums being, a really good source of knowledge for collectors. But if now you have to raise questions around, okay, is the content you're seeing accurate? Are things, being called out still? Are things being deleted? Because if things are being deleted, how can I be aware as a collector of certain scams, of certain fraudulent activity within the hobby? Again, what's the big problem around, self-promotion? And again, I know it's your forum, you can do what you want. If that's your rule, that's your rule. But then why are you deleting things that are not self-promotion? Why are you applying self-promotion claims in one space but not others? So, it is what it is. I think there was more things I wanted to talk to here, specifically around, pushing down certain mindsets within the hobby, right? Saying to people, you can't talk about these things, because again, that's what it looks like is happening, right? They don't want people talking about Ken Golden or Sports Card Investor. That might not be what they're actually intending to do, but that's how it's coming across to the wider collector base. And that thought process goes on to something else within that comment thread that I originally showed you with Mind Cycle cards. There appears to be a lot more narrative controlling in the sports card space. And as, Maximus in Podcast and Sports Card Uncensored both rightfully raised here, if you want to be giving yourself a title of investor, like I touched on a little bit earlier, you deserve some pushback, you deserve some challenge. And the thing I just want to quickly raise is, off the back of that, I said, yeah, but that seems to be something that's quite pervasive in, the sports card hobby in general, right? Because you've got a lot of people, whether it be instances like this, whether it be people like the Great Curator, whether it be certain card show vloggers, basically deleting comments, controlling the narrative in their lives, restricting who can comment on Instagram Reels, basically pushing back on anybody that questions them. It seems to be a lot more pervasive in this space than anywhere else, right? You want people to challenge you. I understand blocking people, I understand deleting people, I understand restricting people that are being hateful. But if somebody's asking you genuine questions about something you put out in a video, like let's go back to the Great Curator about his fake, box break and what that might indicate for some of his deals, right? When you're getting pushback in areas like that, you should welcome it, right? Because that makes you better as an individual. You want to be challenged. There just seems to be so many people in the sports card space so scared of that. And, you know, I don't know why that is. Are you insecure? Maybe, maybe not. Like the common sense in me, the critical thinker in me, I should say, would say, okay, you're doing that for a reason because you don't want people to ask questions. And a lot of these questions that are being asked are very, very fair. And it's not a good thing, in my opinion. Like, we don't want censorship in any form, let alone things like this, right? This seems to be very fair, very open. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen, you know, in the next few days. If you've got Blowout Forums starting to do this more and more, either to protect the self-interest or just doing it because they think it's the right thing to do, you might end up at a point where they're no longer a good source of knowledge for you as a collector, right? You might not be able to go to the Blowout Forums anymore and say, okay, am I getting all the information here? Are there any, you know, relationships in the background that are not disclosed, right? So it's really unfortunate, but it is what it is. Let me know, you know, if I missed anything. I know I went on a rant again. I talk about that in every freaking video, so I do apologize at the end of every single video, but it is what it is. I hope you liked it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know if you agree with anything I said, disagreed. I thought it was very interesting, and I hope it's not what people are thinking, right? I hope it's not these guys, you know, having some kind of relationship in the background, because that would be, you know, very, very disappointing in my opinion. So it is what it is. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.